Hello, as the kids of car confections would say, what is going on, YouTube? It's one of my favorite intros. Hello, greetings. I need to fix my camera where I'm like bouncing all around, but you guys don't care. Welcome to this early 4th of July live stream. But I'm not here alone, thank goodness. Mr. Craig Cole joins us all the way from the Republic of Korea. Well, was in the Republic of Korea.
It was.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, how are you, Chad? Getting ready for the 4th? Got your hot dogs defrosting and your grill propane tank full?
Ready to blow my fingers off with some fireworks. Yep, sounds about right. But we're going to talk about today about some stuff from up north. And when I think of up north, Craig, I do think of you and a reasonably close neighbor of yours. We have everybody, Miss GoElectric here.
Hi, everyone.
Fun fact, none of you on this live stream need to know where either one of these people live, but they are neighbors-ish.
And we're honorary Canadians.
And honorary Canadians, yes, both of them. So, hi, thanks for joining us. What's your, how's things going? I see you've got
going really well.
I see you got a YouTube channel doing things.
I absolutely do. And it's weird because I think you have one too.
It's weird. I think we're on it right now.
Where?
Oh.
It's yeah. But no, check out Miss GoElectric's YouTube channel, which I will at some point put in the description box below, maybe.
Why,
possibly. And she's doing a weekly news show. Talk a little bit about that. Why'd you decide to do that?
So last year in August, I joined the Inside EVs podcast. When they were revamping it, they needed 4 new hosts. So I was a part of that. And then I was part of that until about March. And then they decided that they wanted to revamp it again and do a different style of format instead of a live stream. So then I was like, you know what? I still want to be talking about the news every single week. So why don't I launch this show that I've been wanting to do ever since I started my channel, which is about a 10-minute series of EV news every single week in a more concise format, because I feel like a lot of people are doing the hour to 2 hour long thing. And I had a lot of people ask me if they could have it in a condensed format. So I launched that. And now I think just this past week, we hit 17 episodes. So yeah, if you want to learn about EV news in a condensed format every single week, check us out.
Who does 2 hour videos? Kyle.
He's not the only one, I will say.
That's published one almost 5 hours, Chad.
I did actually recently. I channeled my inner out of spec and
Kyle.
So we're here to talk about some stuff, but there's one more person I got to introduce, and I have prepared fanfare because we're talking about a Canadian today. I need to go full Canadian here. Switch up the flag. Hold on. They dropped his face in too early. Hold on. I got a song ready. Anywho, it's Mr. Evan Williams. Hello, Evan.
Hey, guys.
How are
Thanks
you?
for having me. Good, thanks.
Can you tell our fans, all of our audience, what is it that you say you do here?
I'm Evan Writes Cars on most social media. I write. I don't have a YouTube channel. I used to, but I'm kind of old school. I'm in print. You'll see me in the Toronto Star. I know. Most Saturdays. I write for Auto Trader Canada. A number of other Canadian sites, hotcars.com, and you'll see me kind of popping up everywhere.
And you're also. It says your lower third title says.
Oh, yeah. I'm the president of the Automobile Journalists Association of Canada this year.
Can you take 30 seconds to describe that while somebody else on this call mutes their cell phone?
Sure, absolutely. AJAC is, there's kind of the International Motor Press Association. In the U.S. there's the what are you guys in the Mid America?
Mama.
Craig
Mama.
and I are in the Midwest automotive.
It's like that for Canadians. It's kind of our industry group. We run the Canadian Car of the Year awards. We put on a couple of events a year. We put on Eco Run, which just happened, which is kind of an electric vehicle road trip. And we have a bigger event near the end of the year for all the new vehicles.
Awesome. I still hear some buzzing, so I don't know. Evan, can you check to make sure your phone's muted by chance?
Yeah, it's you know what? I'll turn it right off.
Okay. Well, it's just weird. I keep hearing a phone buzzing, and then.
Well, the mine's not doing anything. Nobody calls me, so it's okay.
Well, nobody calls me either. So unless I irritate somebody at an automaker, and then I get a phone call. But otherwise, I'm gonna turn this background back to our normal. So I gathered you all. Thanks for coming. I gathered you all here today because first, before we even talk into that, let's just address the comment. Your videos are great. Look at you.
That's
and that person is also a Canadian. So
all right,
we are here. 15 million Canadians can't be wrong. That's what they say about Tim Hortons, right?
What about the other half of us?
I think when Tim Hortons ran that campaign, there were only 15 million Canadians. I think the population.
Are there like 38 million now, something like that?
But almost 40.
Oh.
Yeah, we've grown a lot in the last 2 years.
Well, you might get an influx of asylum seekers, before too long.
Yeah, well, we get space.
That's good. You do. You have all of that space. What a lot of people don't know. Let's hit some Canadian facts before we get into it. Most Canadians live south of the northernmost point in the U.S., right? Or in the continental U.S., right?
Yeah, South Detroit is Windsor, Ontario. 80% of us live along the border, and that puts most of us, below, below Montana and some of those states. I think I'm right in line with the top of California where I live.
And you're in Halifax, correct?
Yeah, I'm stuck at go to Maine and then keep heading east, and you'll run into me.
So it's like instead of being 2:08 Eastern time, it's like 3:17 or something there.
Well,
right?
Yeah, if you keep going, there's another half hour from Newfoundland, but 10 after 3 here.
There's a whole lot of Canada.
There,
like a lot
of Canada.
There is. We see people talking about cannonballing from New York to LA. Ooh, driving across the U.S. 2,700 miles. It's a 27-hour drive just across Ontario, and there's 9 more provinces to cross.
Not even mentioning the territories.
That's right.
Oh, I would ask what the difference between a territory and a province is, but let's segue from road trips. Let's segue from road trips into road trips. In the fall, we did a road trip that involved some Canada. Talking to some of our Canadian friends in Montreal. Shout out to Ben Hunting. Talks a lot about how Canadian charging infrastructure isn't as good as the United States. And we crap on it a lot here, but it's apparently worse there. But turns out, maybe it's not that big of a deal. So, Evan, you shared this. I don't know if it was on the Blue Sky, which Miss GoElectric we have to get you on, or if it's was in a Discord. But there's a new survey out from the Canadian government or sponsored by the Canadian government.
Electromobility Canada. It's kind of a big Canadian EV advocacy and trade group.
And what did it say? Like a real high level. What your takeaway is? Like what is?
Well, I mean, the high level is that people are happier with charging than I would have expected. People are happy with their EVs, and people with electric vehicles in Canada drive more than people with gas cars and cars and trucks. And that really surprised me.
So we'll kind of work through showing some of this, but most Canadians drive less than 10,000 kilometers annually.
Yeah, that's about 6,000 miles. So, it's really pretty short.
In freedom units. And EV owners are more inclined to drive nearly double that, 38%, from 10 to 20,000 kilometers. So I think that mirrors what we're being told here, that EV drivers drive more than gas-powered cars.
I mean, and it holds through all the way to the highest driving people, the people who drive more than 30,000 kilometers a year. It's at 20,000 miles. 9% of EV owners do. Only 6% of gas vehicle owners do. So EV owners, even at the longest distances, are driving more.
What surprised me was that EV owners are apparently more likely to take a 500-kilometer plus road trip than folks that have combustion-powered cars, which again is the exact opposite of what you might expect.
Yeah, but if
when
you
it comes to,
sorry, go ahead, Evan.
No, I was going to say, when it comes to those 300-mile road trips, 1 or 2 trips a year, EV drivers are equally likely. 3 or 4 trips, they're twice as likely. 5 to 6 trips, they're twice as likely to drive 300-mile road trips.
I also thought one interesting piece of data, it shouldn't be surprising, but the region marked as north has the highest percentage of the longest number of trips and the most miles driven. But I guess that's probably because there's nothing up there. So you have
that's the territory.
Going into town is a 300-mile trip.
It can be if you can drive it.
But it does sort of, if we could pop that back up again real quick, that same page, it kind of says that people are taking EV road trips, which we've done some. Miss GoElectric, I know that you've done more than your share of those, including a Race Across the America coverage, which check the description box, which I'll forget to put the link in for. It says to people,
child's play, as Evan says.
Yes. But also, people aren't taking that many road trips. Like, if you're looking at, 1 to 2 trips of 500 kilometers or more per year, 47%, 27% of Canadians aren't doing any road trip like that. And very few are going beyond that. So we are told, and Evan, I'm assuming the same thing as stuff that you see up in Canada, is, oh my gosh, everybody, we have to have this 400-mile or 600-kilometer EV because, what if I have to take this road trip that I take all the time that I actually, turns out people aren't actually taking that. I know we're a bad sample size here because I drive a lot, and Miss GoElectric, I know you drive a lot. But yeah, we're constantly told, oh, I gotta have all the range because what if? And
it's the same reason somebody commutes to work every day in a Suburban, because they go up north camping twice a year, right? They'd rather just have more vehicle than necessary for security, to feel safe, right? Rather than just renting that Suburban or full-size SUV when they actually need it a few times a year.
Right. Another, I think, key takeaway, and Miss GoElectric, I'm sure you have at least one of these at home. Over 3 in 4 Canadians who own an EV or P have access to home charging. I'm sure you do, right?
Yeah, actually, I just had my Tesla station swapped out for the universal wall connector because we had the power share installed yesterday. So now the Cybertruck that we have can feed back to the house when we have our power go out. So we just actually got that finished up, but I have a Rivian R110 is what I daily drive, and my partner drives the Cybertruck. So it's going to be really nice actually now because I don't have to use my adapter every time I even want to just plug in at home. But yes, I've had a home charger since 2017 when I moved into this place. So
do people regularly frown or thumbs down your partner when he drives the Cybertruck?
Well, his license plate is ugly truck, so no.
Okay, fair.
He's tempered
fair.
that.
Fair. That's a good counter for sure. And Evan, I think you had something installed recently.
No, I still use a regular wall plug.
Oh.
But that's enough for me, really, most of the time.
Well, I mean, you work from an airplane, but when you're not on an airplane, you work from home, right?
Yeah, I work from home, but I don't drive as much as I used to. I think a lot of people notice the same thing. We don't have a lot of fast chargers here, so I don't really count on them. But almost everything we get for an EV now can do 300 miles, and if I can't do that and get charged back up in a week, then it's a pretty big surprise.
If we go one more page down on that, I thought this was the really interesting piece of data, which is in the past year, 41% of EV PHEV owners have used a fast charger, and at least 3 to 5 times. And the public fast charger side of the graph is the thing that I find the most interesting, because plug-in hybrids, unless you have that new Land Rover or an Outlander PHEV, you're not going to use a fast charger because you can't plug that in. So EV owners in Canada only fast charge 3 to 5 times a year. The majority only 3 to 5 times a year, and over half it's less than five times a year.
Maybe
Canada, as big as Canada is, everyone lives in a city, or at least what passes for a city. And 85% of Canadians live in urban areas, and 3/4 of those have home charging. So if you're not going that far because you live in a city and you can plug in at home, you really don't need to fast charge very often.
But
I was wondering, perhaps that's why Canadian drivers are generally happy with the public charging network. What was it, 70% say they have never or rarely had issues with public fast charging?
Yeah,
because they're not using them very often.
Exactly. If you don't use it, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But we've seen similar data, though, that suggests that Americans aren't doing it either. It's just that there is a little bit more, I think, usage, because I think we have more rural population than you do in Canada.
It's within 0.1%. I looked it up before the call.
Okay, so really, just people aren't doing it. People aren't fast charging. So
yeah,
I think that it's important, and I keep saying this. I think that it's important, all four of us, to talk about fast charging and the infrastructure, because it does need to be better. I also think the reality is it doesn't matter much.
No.
You know what I think that this kind of tells the story of, in my opinion, when I see this data, I think of, the people that are owning EVs are driving more. And I think that really just shows the value of how much more affordable it is to be able to drive an EV across the country versus driving an internal combustion engine vehicle, especially considering Canada. I mean, most people there, it seems like they buy a pickup truck or a big SUV. That's like the most popular segment, 2 segments there. So I think, to me, that's what stands out most, is that the people that are buying EVs are realizing the value proposition, that they are a more affordable option to be able to take those types of trips. And as we see in the data as well, that it's not an issue for them. They're going to these public chargers. They're probably happy with the cost once they get there to fill up, and they're already, stopping and having to either eat or do whatever they need to do at that stop. So it's not an inconvenience as what other people expect, especially in the United States.
Just to address the on-screen thing, a lot of this data still skews heavily for Tesla owners. So I think some of that reliability data, of course, is going to be, because Tesla superchargers tend to be more reliable, mainly due to volume.
The Tesla supercharger network isn't as extensive up here. We also haven't had Tesla showrooms in most of the country. So I'm not sure that it skews quite as high here as it would in the U.S. But unfortunately, the study didn't take that number.
Right. And electricity is inexpensive in Ontario. I recently paid like 65 cents a kilowatt hour to DC fast charge a car, which is like at least 2 loonies, or a toonie. I don't know how that translates, but that was way too much. And that was the EVgo station. It was one of those new GM Ultium. It's actually the one closest to Craig and Miss GoElectric and myself, if we all drew a line. And then I was there a week later, and it was down to like 56 cents or 54 cents. So I think somebody's heard me complain about it. But
so the last time I paid by the kilowatt hour, it was 39 cents Canadian. So
wow,
28 cents.
I was gonna say that's like cheap.
Yeah, and when our gasoline right now is about $7 a gallon, and electricity is somewhere in the my electricity where I live is 15 cents a kilowatt at home.
Right.
Do you call it hydro, though, like they do in Ontario?
I don't in Nova Scotia, because we don't have any hydro. It's mostly still coal and gas.
Yeah.
New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, anywhere where it is hydro, definitely still calls it hydro, whether it's from nuclear or from whatever.
My auto guide colleagues, of course, auto guide headquartered in Toronto, but yeah, they would always say, "Oh, the hydro line. Go to what?
Yeah,
I don't see any water."
But yeah, no, that's a cheap rate. That's even a cheap, I think that on an EA plan, I'm paying 42 cents, if I'm not mistaken. And I've seen supercharger rates because they do time of day charging rates now, at least locally for me, sort of vary in that price range, which is still cheaper than gas. I mean, I was just in Portland last week over the weekend for the Formula E race, and it was like $5.50 there a gallon, or I'm sorry, $4.50 to $5, and then in Southern California, it's $5 to $6 a gallon, which is a lot. So, and there's just clarifications and expensive to home charge in Canada. Same here. I think I'm paying 12 or 13 cents a kilowatts. Evan, I think you said 14. I don't know which two the other two pay, but it's probably around that. The national average, I think, is 16 cents. So there are some cities like Boston that's like 31 cents, which is a bit ridiculous. But still, when you math that out, it's still less than gas.
Yeah.
Woo! Gas. One other thing that I definitely want to hit on, and maybe this is personal because I've seen some anti-EV media out there highlighting it, but the very next slide talks about among EV owners, 54% note that 15 to 30 minutes is a reasonable amount of time to spend at a fast charger, and the majority, like a big majority, says 45 minutes or less is perfectly fine to sit at a fast charger. I don't know who those 6% are that want to sit an hour at a fast charger. I don't. But only 13% feel that you should spend less than 15 minutes. Like they think that it's only that once you hit 15 minutes, it's unreasonable. So we know in a lot of EGMP cars that 18 minutes gets you from 10 to 80%. That's usually another 200 miles of range. Modern Teslas they don't charge, I don't feel like, as quickly. Kind of depends. Charging curves are kind of wonky there. I don't know, Miss GoElectric, what you've been getting on the Cybertruck. I've seen some interesting videos there.
I mean, to us, it's like the quintessential curve of Teslas, which is, if you're at a low state of charge, you get a high amount, very short period of time, and then it kind of tapers down throughout the charging curve. But apparently there was an update that was just pushed that was supposed to have improvements for DC fast charging just yesterday. So we haven't tried that out yet. Ultimately, to me, I'm not dissatisfied. My partner's not dissatisfied. We've driven it, I think, like 5,000 miles so far since we got it in at the end of March, back and forth from Wisconsin to Nashville to Michigan to Nashville to Chicago. So we've driven it kind of all over the place, and no issues as far as, the performance of the DC fast charging. So, but I'm not the one that wants the 15-minute, like, I gotta be in and out of here immediately.
Right. So,
like, it's always like I'm traveling enough for where I'm going for hours, and then I need to stop anyways because I'm hungry or I have to use the restroom anyways, and it's an appropriate amount of time.
Yeah. So what are you doing during those charging stops? Like, because
most of the time eating. I like eating.
because I was told, I read on the internet, I saw on the internet that that it's a myth that you can get a decent amount of range from the time it takes to eat lunch. I saw that.
Fast? I guess it depends on how fast you eat lunch.
Well, they went from 70.
I actually eat pretty fast too.
They went from 70 to 85% in any area. So that's not exactly.
Why are they charging like that, though?
Because they're morons, and I will publicly say that person is a moron, and I don't care if they come and see this live stream, because that is stupid. It is a stupid way. It's a stupid way to test cars. But that's the misinformation that's out there. Is people will look at charging data like this and say, oh, well, 18 minutes, that's a super long time. When the reality,
a lot of people think they need to charge up to 80% to keep going. And that's
And they
another thing,
don't.
is that a lot of times I'm not charging, like I'm charging for what I need or what I can expect for where my destination is. So if I do need to stop more than 1 or 2 times, then I plan it out accordingly to coordinate with something else, either that I'm already doing or a task that I want to accomplish while I'm out on the road. So it's like not really an inconvenience for me when I'm doing that, because I'm multitasking.
Well, and you don't need to go to 100. I think some people feel like, oh,
Exactly.
you've got to go.
Mhm.
You don't. When Kyle, if I'm not mistaken, when Out of Spec Kyle did his first cross country Cannonball EV run thing, like he was like pull in at 0, leave at like 30 or 40, and then go the next 100 miles and stop. And it turned out that was quicker when you're looking at the way the charging and stuff breaks down.
No, thank you. I'm going to 0.
I've gotten Greg pretty close to 0 before, slightly.
No, we've hit 0, yeah, but
No, we
no.
haven't had to knock on wood push yet. So
No.
We don't have that problem with the Cybertruck because superchargers, as everyone knows, are everywhere in the United States. But as far as my truck, there's a trip that I've been making frequently because I've been on a project in Nashville area. So I've been driving from Nashville to Michigan often in my R1T. In that region, there aren't as many charging stations available for my truck, which has CCS1 connector. And so I have to sometimes stop with still 100+ miles left on my charge, which that's not ideal for me because I have a max pack R1T. So I have up to 410 miles of range. And I average, if I don't have my e-bikes on the back of my truck, at highway speeds, I'm getting maybe like 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. So I'm not getting the 410, but at least, I would like to go a little bit further before I have to stop, because as you just mentioned with the charging curve, I get much faster rates when I'm at a lower state of charge, and I don't, it makes the process of having to wait a lot less. So that is one thing to consider, and why it's important that other EVs are going to tap into the supercharging network.
I was gonna say you can use it now, can't you?
Not yet. I don't have an adapter.
Oh, you should.
So so since I waited for my max pack, I didn't get it till October of this past year.
Okay.
Even though I had it reserved for like 5 years.
Mhm.
So they're doing it by, the first people that got their taken delivery are the ones that get it first. I'm like, how about you do the people that drive the most on DC fast chargers?
Well,
that would help out.
Yeah, maybe we could partner on something, and you could borrow one of the several adapters we have. So,
I'm being somewhat patient.
Okay. We have Electron. We have the Electron one, which I haven't tried yet, and then we have an OE one because Ben has a Mach-E. So, so we are all set. We are all adapted up here.
So you're 31 to 45 minutes patient, not 15 minutes patient.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, but I mean, yeah, like if you get out of Toledo, you have to go basically all the way to Dayton before you're at another like EA kind of charger, and there's some slower chargers sort of along that route. But yeah, the western part of Ohio is doable. I've done it, but it's also could be.
Huber Heights is a common one for me, which is a frustrating one because it's very popular and the stations are a previous generation. So a lot of times there are people that have to repair them, or they're down or whatnot. Yeah. So there is that. I've never not been able to charge there, but it is sometimes you might have to wait to plug in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only level 3 charger in my city, and it's not the only one. There's a bunch of 50s that are dealers that you can't get to. But the only one above that, there's one in the entire city. The next one's about an hour, and it's pretty much been broken for the last 3 years.
That's not a surprising experience, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Only one.
What did surprise me, though, from the study is the number of Canadians that are planning on purchasing a new vehicle within the next year, Chad.
Yeah.
30%.
But only 1 in 10 know how much a new light-duty vehicle costs. So
yeah,
they're going to be in for a surprise.
They are going to be in for a surprise. They're going to walk into that dealership and they're going to be like, I'm sorry, I can't buy one.
The average new car here is $67,000 right now.
Yeah.
And nearly everyone said well below that.
Yeah, 40.
That was what was shocking.
Yeah.
Because it's about, I did the numbers, was it 66.4 Canadian, which is about a little less than 49 grand US, and that's just about the same new vehicle transaction price for us.
Yeah, 46 here.
And
46
Canadians
US.
want to spend less than 40 grand, 64% of them.
Well, in early 2000, there were multiple $10,000 new cars you could buy. At least in theory, you could. There was the Micra, there was the Mirage, there was this the Sonic. There was a few. Now I can't think of any that are less than $20,000, and even those, a new Civic, new Civic starts at 25. The hybrid's almost 40. A CRV is $40,000 with the hybrid above 50. We don't have cheap cars anymore. We barely have affordable cars now.
And it's the case too, Evan, isn't it, that most vehicles there sell as all-wheel drive vehicles because of the weather that you have there? Is that correct?
I'm not sure that customers wanted everything to have all-wheel drive, but yeah, basically everything where all-wheel drive is an option in the U.S., it'll be standard up here. I'm sure the dealers don't mind because they get a bit extra profit there. But it's hard to find anything that could have all-wheel drive that doesn't.
And that's also something to think about when we think about EVs, because usually those lower price options are the single motor variants. And when you jump up a little bit to those all-wheel drives, they might be out of reach for some people.
Yeah, and EVs, Canada used to get a pretty good deal on EVs because our incentives are a little bit different. They've always been point of sale, and they've been based on price rather than battery content, anything like that. So the cutoff was $45,000 plus destination for the base model. So, when the i4 came out, for example, we could get an i4, the i4 30, I think, for $44,995. So it qualified for the incentive. And there were a ton of EVs for 40 grand. But then they raised the cutoff to $55,000 instead of $45,000. And now all of these EVs that were 45 are now 55.
Funny that, huh?
Yeah, they kind of jumped up, not overnight, but not far away from overnight.
Yeah.
And to me, that just makes me think of the tariffs in our case of not allowing Chinese EVs to come in here and setting those really high bars. But I'm pretty sure I heard that Canada is looking into doing a similar thing to try to keep Chinese EVs out. And to me, that is not good for the consumer because we want to have the competition to be able to drive those prices down.
Yeah, we're looking at tariff. I don't think it's going to be quite as high, but the government announced last week that they're considering putting a tariff in place. But other than BYD a few years ago actually brought a couple thousand taxis in for Montreal and that area. But other than that, we haven't really seen. Our market's kind of too small. We haven't seen much of an influx of those kind of vehicles.
Did you know there's over 50 PHEVs and EVs on sale in Canada, less than the average new car transaction price?
Well, yeah, because the average transaction price is $67,000.
Only 8% of Canadians know that.
Yeah, well, even if you had asked them 4 years ago, I bet the number that had it right would have been higher. But people just haven't caught up to how quickly the market's changed.
But people are catching on because 41% of Canadians plan to go EV or PHEV with their next vehicle purchase within a year.
Yeah. As long as they can find them. Availability is still a big problem. But we're also going to see incentives are starting to go down. Quebec, which already had the biggest incentive by their provincial incentive was like $8,000. They've already started to phase it out this year. Going to no incentive at all by 2027, I believe, which is kind of shocking.
But maybe there'll be a whole bunch of very cheap Chinese cars by then, and they won't need incentives.
I mean, that's fine as long as they open up service centers.
Yes.
You see a Lucid or a Rivian here, and the nearest service center is a 14-hour drive away. We just got a Tesla repair center this year. So, if you're outside of Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, you might not want to jump into those cheap EVs because you might end up with some pretty big tow bills, for service.
I think we just lost Chad. He was frozen for a second. Looks like he's trying
Uh-oh.
to reconnect. Maybe. Oh, he disappeared again. Technical difficulties. The internet's very complicated. It's a series of tubes. I'm not sure how it
Can you
works.
hear me?
We can hear
Unfortunately,
you.
yes.
Oh, then you just can't see me. So that's half the battle.
It's perfect now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's weird. Everything else looks perfectly okay, but now I'm just looking at this black screen, which means
Camera problems for Chad.
I wish I could just replace the flag again.
Well,
Be like,
I'll tell you, while you're waiting for that to come up, I want to mention what I thought was kind of the funniest thing on the entire survey. That is, so they asked if Canadians were aware of the provincial and federal incentives for EVs. Quebec has had their incentive for, I'm not quite sure now, it's got to be close to 10 years. It's the province that has the highest level of EV adoption. And it covers much higher priced vehicles, up to closer to 100,000. Only 64% of people in Quebec who owned EVs knew about the incentives. So almost 100% of those people got an incentive or should have gotten an incentive at point of purchase, and a third of them didn't know about or don't know about it.
So they got it but didn't realize it.
Or somehow the dealer's keeping it. I don't know.
I was going to say,
it should be hard to do, but I don't know.
Your boy Trudeau should be bragging about that to people. Be like, look, this car's cheaper. This car's cheaper because of my government. My government.
Yeah.
Like around here, all the IRA funding for the infrastructure stuff, like it all has signs, big signs that brag that this was part of the bipartisan Biden infrastructure bill. Like brag that crap up, man.
But the people that don't like him also don't like EVs. So I don't know.
They're the same circle one. They cross.
Oh, it's a big circle.
It's a Venn data.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, dealers not being great as a collective apparently also includes Canada.
So that's a fun one up here too. We don't have any rules that say that OEMs can't own their own stores.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but they don't. They just don't. Most of them will own one or two in kind of the biggest market. Like Mercedes just sold the last 10 of their stores that they owned a couple years ago. So, up here they don't have to have that problem. They could own their store, they could control everything, and they've decided they don't want to because dealers are really good scapegoats.
Dealers are pretty good scapegoats.
They might cause problems, but they can also absorb a lot of blame.
Right.
Just blame the dealers; it'll be fine.
Yeah,
exactly. Because you can always go to another store and pretend it's not owned by the same person.
Evan being self-employed.
Keyword pretend.
Evan, you can deduct 75% of your vehicle's costs.
If it's a work vehicle, you can, yeah.
Well, it's always a work vehicle. Section 179 here in the U.S., everybody gets away with that.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that here. I have to if it's a mixed-use vehicle, I have to track every single kilometer and how it was, whether it was a work drive or
same here. You just don't do it.
But
you're not going to get audited.
That's sound financial advice from Chad.
No, I do not give financial advice. I'm just saying I know people that do that. That probably should be audited. But snitches get stitches. So
I don't. That's a dirty word. I don't like to even think about that. I just actually filed mine yesterday. So.
Oh, you have to file for Canada Day. Is that your?
No,
you pay quarterly.
Self-employed's a little different timeline, and I'm a little bit late, so
So Canadians, turns out they're just like us.
Just a little bit colder for now.
Yeah. Anecdotally, how are obviously this survey says people are interested in EVs. Once they learn about them, they're interested even more in it. That sort of reflects sort of what we're seeing. I know as part of AJAC, you go to the Toronto Auto Show.
Yep.
I think that's what it's officially called, and have a booth there and give advice. Like you do more than just get together and have a big circle jerk about EVs.
Yeah. As for the Canadian International Auto Show every year, we do, we started having a booth with the Canadian Car and Electric Car of the Year winners. And so we do kind of outreach, talk to buyers or, people at the show about the electric vehicles we've got, about the experience with, like, for us driving them in all the remote corners of the country. Um, and people value that. People are still a little bit afraid to try something new, which I can kind of understand. Um, when they hear from real people that they can see and touch and know aren't bots on the internet, um, they really value that information. So that's a big part of what we do at the show there.
Do you see demand increasing? I mean, or do you see more questions and
It
stuff
seems
about
to
it?
be. There's definitely more interest. I think demand's increasing. When the incentives tail off, it's going to kind of slow down again. I think. Just it's going to there's going to be a rush of buyers before the incentive ends, and then it's going to be a bit of a lull after.
Right.
We've seen that in other places. When Ontario dropped their EV incentive. But I think overall demand is going to continue to rise, and as long as we keep getting more. We keep getting more and more fast chargers. We keep getting more and more infrastructure, um, and more people looking for them, and finally enough capacity from automakers. I think we're going to keep seeing that demand grow.
Speaking of affordability and stuff, Craig, you just checked out the EV3 in Korea. How was it? You didn't drive it. But you got to
Well,
look
it was
at
a mad dash to shoot it in about 20 minutes, but it looks pretty nice, actually. More of what you would expect from Kia, of course. They're doing a fantastic job these days, and kind of looks like a shrunken EV9. Very nice interior, big screens, sort of a chunky, chiseled design, decently comfortable interior. If they can bring it here and get the price right, it'll be a hot EV, I think. Just like the other EGMP cars, of course.
Would you take that or an EX30?
Oh, that's a tough question because the EX30 is quite nice. I might take the EX30 even though I don't care for the lack of an instrument cluster. I would much prefer having a separate screen for the speed and other powertrain related warning lights. But the EX30 is super nice and it looks great too. So
and it's
that's
having
that's
super
safe.
software issues.
Everything has a software issue,
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
software's hard apparently.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm told. Making cars is hard.
Yeah.
But since you asked the versus question, Miss GoElectric, Cybertruck or Rivian R1T?
Oh, Rivian all day, all day.
The right choice.
Rivian R1T, no doubt. I mean, there are some advantages. That's interesting to think about, like the use case of the Cybertruck. And after you get used to riding around in it, it just feels like a Tesla. So it's, it feels somewhat normal, but there's still this period of time where everyone's like trying to take pictures and like they get really crazy about it. We had some people that literally were driving 80 miles per hour on the highway in the middle lane, and the guy in the fast lane has his phone in one hand and it tells us to roll down the window. He's rolling his window down so that he can have a conversation with us on the highway at 80 miles per hour about the Cybertruck, which is just, people are unhinged in this regard. So I'm glad I don't really have to deal with that in my truck.
Has it maimed or injured you in any way?
Yes, it is very sharp. You have to be careful.
But has it maimed or injured you specifically?
I would hope not.
Or do you
just
only
like slight like nicks on your like fingers and hands and stuff like that. You got to be careful with like your clothing because if it catches, then it'll rip. But it hasn't been too bad. But yes, it is this slightly dangerous exterior.
$100,000 vehicle.
Yeah,
Potential
exactly.
bodily harm while not even driving it.
Yep.
Well, I mean, most cars can kill you. Most cars can kill you in motion. This one can kill you standing still.
Wow. It wouldn't kill you. It's just a moderate injury.
EX30 starts at 54,000 in Canada. Is that because you only get the dual motor? Is that the?
I didn't realize they released pricing yet for it.
No.
But that
I know
would
they're
be
delaying it again.
that would be just under the incentive cutoff. So it makes sense.
So that explains. Yeah. Huh. Marketing. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought? So, anyways, I know that Miss GoElectric has a hard out here in a second. Dual motor only on the EX30, which I don't know. Maybe they'll delay yours until you're in Ghent. Hey, I'm frozen again. Look at that. So, anyways, as I look stupid, I'm gonna leave and come back in. Talk about something fun for like the next 10 seconds.
Here's a fun fact from this study, another one that jumped out at me. Of folks that already own, this is folks, Canadian, that already own an EV or a plug-in, 82% would purchase another EV or a plug-in.
Yeah.
It seems like once people live the electric life, they really like it.
Yeah, it's not that scary.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised at the tiny number of people who would switch to a hybrid. I think it was 8% would switch back to a hybrid car. We're either going electric or we're nothing at all. But
they might be the ones that live in the Yukon or something, or Nunavut or whatever, and they don't.
Well, even there, I've heard people are pretty happy because they're used to having to plug your car in every night anyway.
Oh, yeah. Like a block heater.
Yeah. Like people joke about that in the prairies, in Alberta and Saskatchewan, but you don't really have to plug in your car there. A car will start just fine, a modern car at -30.
Yeah.
In either unit. But when you get really far north, they were already plugging their cars in. So, having a car that will charge while it's plugged in and having a car that is warm when you come out to it because you can precondition it is amazing.
That's a fascinating parallel I had never thought of, that people are plugging their ICE vehicles in as engine block heaters. So they're already programmed to do that at least 6 months of the year.
Some people,
so jumping to an electric isn't that much of a stretch for them.
And people who own diesels up there, if you get a diesel pickup, they don't shut them off all winter because they won't start again. And wouldn't you rather not be burning diesel while you're asleep?
I mean,
Now, yes, all of their electricity comes from diesel too when you're that far north, but a generator is still more efficient than a truck.
And I want to be free to breathe particulate emissions. Don't take my particulates from me. So I'm going to leave my truck running all night.
Let me delete my diesel.
Yeah.
Dang it. Blaine Sleep drives a lot, which is probably why Blaine sleeps a lot.
Well, then he must have statistically, he's more likely to have an electric vehicle, I guess is what that's.
I guess, yeah. Or where's your commute to? Mars?
Based on his picture, I think not.
Probably not Mars. But anyways, thank you everybody for being here. Miss GoElectric, where can people find you? Let's start with you.
YouTube.com/Miss GoElectric, or if you're into e-bikes or two-wheel things, I just got my motorcycle endorsement this past weekend, so I'm going to be doing some electric motorcycle reviews. So you can follow me there on YouTube.com. Miss GoElectric ride reviews, and of course I'm on social media everywhere as Miss GoElectric. So
awesome. And we should do something with your Cybertruck. We should figure out a video.
Sure thing.
Idea, since we determined you live close to Craig. Evan, hello. Thank you for joining us and talking about all things Canada that is not hockey, maple syrup, or Timbits.
That's right. Thanks for having me, eh?
Yes.
Both,
Where can people find you?
You can find me on most social media at Evan Writes Cars. You can find my writing on hot cars on Motor Illustrated on autotrader.ca.
Autotrader.ca with our friend Jody Lai.
Yes, that's right.
I miss Jody. Jody's one of my faves. And then
and Dan Illick, I just saw him in Korea.
Just saw him in Korea. Lots of Canadians. And our EV3 video, Craig, is up. There's also a video on the new Genesis electrified G80, which is not really a refresh, but kind of actually new. And maybe another Korea video coming soon. Happy late Canada Day to you, Evan. Happy 4th of July to you other two. And let's play out with, hold on, let me find it. Hold on, let me find it. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.